Hey folks, it's Janek Gwizdala. It's the Janek Gwizdala podcast. I've got two things I want to talk to you about today. One of them, I guess, pretty important for everyone who plays music, who plays the bass, who plays jazz. Could find a lot of use in that. I know I have done for the past 30 years. The other one is, so it's really important to me, and maybe you will end up nerding out about it too. It's one of those wish list things, something brand new in the world that I really want to get my hands on. It's kind of one of the reasons I've been emptying out some pedals in the library. We'll get to that, both of those things, in just a minute. One very important announcement up front is, as you listen to this podcast when it first comes out this week, I'm going to be in Austin. Got a little tour date announcement. I'll be in Austin with my own group, playing my own music with Gabriel Santiago, with Justin Vasquez, with a new drummer I've never played with before, with a cat that my guys recommended, Gavin. He's coming down from Houston to Austin, and we'll be at Monk's Jazz this coming weekend. Is it that? Wow, I should have had the date ready, shouldn't I? Really? It's the 23rd of August of this fine year of 2025. If you're hearing all this in the future, I'm sorry you missed it. It was probably a really fun show. I'm super looking forward to it. It might be the only band leader day I do this year. It's been super hectic with other people this year. I'm trying to change that a little bit in 2026, but at least I'm sneaking one in there. And we're going to play a bunch of music, especially with the new album that just came out, Found. Really happy about the way that's been going. Thank you so much for checking that out and streaming it on all the platforms. It's like one of the best releases I've ever had, which is kind of crazy. Seeing as the sessions are from 2012 and it's all this music I thought I'd lost and blah, blah, blah. You've probably heard the story by now. But if you haven't, go check it out. I'll link it in the description of the video below or in the show notes of the podcast. There are also 2 music videos for it as well, because I managed to get a hold of all the video footage from the session. So I'm cobbling together these little videos for some of the songs, for some of the bigger songs on the record. And it's by no means super high-end 4K, crazy, beautiful footage, but it was 2012 that it was filmed. Technology was a lot different then, but it's kind of interesting and nostalgic to look back into those sessions and remember being there with the guys, and what a great time it was, and how sad I remember being at the time that we could only release a certain amount of music on one album, yet we'd recorded enough music for 4 or 5. So very happy to have put that record out last week, and I appreciate your support in that. It's been going great. Lots and lots and lots of positive feedback and tons of streams on Spotify and Apple Music. So fantastic. The 2 things, let's get down to business, that I want to talk to you about today. What should we go with? Should we go with the musical one? Well, they're both musical, aren't they? Let's go. Yeah, I want to play a little bit. I've got the bass in my hands. Got the bass in my hands, so why not do the playing side of things? Once in a while, YouTube knows what's up, and it serves you up a piece of music or a video, something that you're like, oh yeah, I really connect with that. Now, I knew this song. It's called For Sephora. It's written by Stachello Rosenberg, played probably most famously by the Rosenberg Trio. There's a version that YouTube served me up with, the Rosenberg Trio plus Borelli Legren, and it's a beautiful version. I'll link to that version actually below in the video as well. You can check that out. But it just reminded me of an influence I have in music, especially in jazz and in improvisation, that I don't really talk about that much. But it's something that's been with me since before the bass, since before the guitar, since before music was ever on my radar as a thing to do, even as a hobby or even as a kid. This style of music was something that I really connected with, and it's gypsy jazz is the initial. I forget the French word for that, but that was sort of the initial name for it. It was sort of changed to manouche jazz, I guess, in the 90s or so. Either way, it's the style of music that you may be familiar with through people like Django Reinhardt, who kind of innovated that form. And around Paris in the, I want to say, the 30s or the 40s, somewhere around there. And famously with Stefan Grappelli, the violinist, and created this sound of, Django. This is all off the top of my head, by the way. I don't have Wikipedia open, and I'm relying on memory here of the history of the music. So get in the comments if I'm wrong about any of this. I think I'm on point that Django was a Romani gypsy and kind of started this tradition of music, having heard people like Louis Armstrong, and then adapting it to these amazing guitars that they play, these Selmer guitars. You might have seen them. They've got this really unique shaped sound hole on the instrument, and they have a very specific sound. If you've ever heard Django Reinhardt or any of the Rosenbergs, the cello Rosenberg, Jimmy Rosenberg, any of these people that have come afterwards carrying on the tradition, if you've heard that, you've probably seen some of these guitars with these unique characteristics to them. So that was where the music was born. I've always played this. I've always played minor swing. I don't know if that was a Django tune or where that came from exactly in the lineage of the music. It's a little minor blues type thing in A. But this For Sephora, this tune by Cello Rosenberg, I reconnected with it a few days ago. Something like that. Anyway, it's a beautiful melody, and something I love about it is that it really outlines the harmony. I mean, as do so many great tunes outline the harmony, but I feel like even playing that without any accompaniment, you can really sort of feel and hear where the harmony's going quite naturally. And that's something I want to talk about simplicity today when we're navigating chord changes, and how you don't have to have all this complex stuff going on or feel the pressure to know all of these scales and theory and terms and titles and labels for things, because there's so much to be had from learning a simple melody from a great artist and playing that, working around the theme of a tune, such as this one for Sephora. And I have a little, I've put the chord changes in my looper, so I can play it to you with the root motion going on. And I even as I'm playing it, I'm like, oh, this video will probably get demonetized just for playing that melody. But you get the idea. It does or it doesn't. No big deal. But you get the idea of what it sounds like with the accompaniment, with the chord changes kind of audible in the background. And I think the melody sort of ends right there, and then they improvise in the space. That's what I've been doing. I've been playing. Borelli played this, like some line like that before it went back to the melody in the version I've been listening to. Anyway, I'm getting a little further out than I would than the concept of what I want to talk to you is all about, which is the simplicity thing, the melody thing, and how I'm going to switch up what's in the looper right now. How you can get through some really sort of famous chord changes, shall we say? So, as you may well have recognized, this is a 1-6, a 2-5-1-6. That's how I'm 2-5-1 in E flat. Because it really doesn't matter what key it's in. I could have gone to C and all the white notes on the piano, just as every other video on YouTube seems to do, and every explanation in every book ever written seems to do. It always seems to go to C, but why not E flat? It's all about the sound. In fact, it's probably better that you go to a key that you're not familiar with as much, or maybe you don't have as many licks down, because what I want you to do is use just the root of the key. In this case, it's E flat, and as you heard, I was predominantly using just E. Doesn't matter what range you're doing it in, how your bass is strung. Just establish the key, establish the root, the tonic, and try and push yourself to be creative with that one note. This is kind of how to get through a 2-5-1 with just one note, and it really works. Obviously, you can't stick there forever. You're going to want to expand, but it does kind of highlight to me the need for spending some time with the fundamentals and being as creative as you can with the most limited amount of tools. I think that's a really good sort of discipline for the practice routine. And even if you add other notes in there, make the root the centerpiece of the idea. See how much E flat there is in there, and everything else you heard me play was pretty much diatonic to the E flat major scale. Not that I want you to think about that while you're playing. I want you to make mistakes. I want you to make as many mistakes as possible. I want you to get the feeling and the phrasing and the feel of the vocabulary into your head to where perhaps you're just vocalizing it. It's complete mumbo jumbo. Just it doesn't make sense. No notes, no words, no real constant syllables. Just again, I'm basically bullshitting around E flat right there, but it's really about the feel of the lines rather than the specificity of the notes. And once you have that vocalizing ability, once you can sort of, let's call it bullshitting, I'm trying to figure out how to connect the word bullshitting and improvisation or jazz together. I'll come up with a way. Maybe you can have find a hybrid word, stick it in the comments below. What do you call it? But that's what it is. Then I'm kind of adding in the notes. Then I'm kind of getting to my instrument. The vocalizing thing is first, then I'm getting to the instrument. Then I'm adding in the notes. Then I'm coming to some more specific intent with what I'm playing. But really, of course, this is all about listening. It's all about immersion in the sound. That's how you will be able to bullshit with vocal-wise, how you'll be able to approximate the language. I'm sure if you heard a conversation in French between two fluent speakers, you could it'd sound like you were making a joke or taking the piss or mocking them or something, but I'm sure you could get somewhere close to the accent and somewhat close to some of the syllables those people were using. Even if you didn't understand what they were, you could start to get the feel of the conversation. You could start to get the feel of the language, of the dialect, of the flow. And I think that's so important when we think about anything. It doesn't have to be improvisation. I just happen to be talking about it from a jazz sense because I heard this Stacello Rosenberg, Borelli Ren piece a few days ago, and that's what sparked it in my mind. But it's exactly the same thing I'm doing when I'm playing bass lines and when I'm creating bass lines in a groove, in a band, on a gig. That's all improvising as well. And again, in my head, I'm sort of bullshitting the vocabulary. And then kind of adding the notes and the intent and the specificity in afterwards. Again, I cannot stress enough the importance of listening to that and just vocalizing and bullshitting along to your favorite records. Get a Larry Graham record or something with James Jamerson on, or Will Lee, or whoever your bass player is, whoever your go-to person is. Get that record on and don't even pick up your bass. Just vocalize along with the bass part and get that rhythm, get that feeling. It's really about the feel of the line, of the piece of vocabulary, that I think is most important to put in at the ground floor. Then you can build upon that. Once you've got that natural flow and that natural feel, almost, I'm being a little hesitant here, but almost anything you play with a great feel and with great time and great sound can sound amazing. Yes, once you have the harmonic and melodic knowledge with the rhythm and feel and phrase, once you have those two locked in, then yes, you become an invincible force of the language of improvisation, regardless of where you do it on your instrument and in what genre you improvise in, whether that's like traditional Irish music or funk bass lines or French gypsy jazz from the 1940s. Doesn't really matter. The foundation is what we're talking about here, and the ability to play through something whether we know it or not, we hear this all the time. In modern music, commercial music, popular music, jazz, we hear, even if there's no 2 with the 5 going to 1, we hear the cadence of 5 going to 1 ever such a lot in music in general. And it makes the other stuff, to me, a million times more effective. When you've got control over the very basics and the foundation, and you can be hyper creative with a very minimal amount of information, once you do get into some of the bebop stuff and outlining the 5 chord, the 5/7 of 2, which is a dominant chord going to the 2 minor of the key before you go to the 5, to the 1. Once you can then start outlining all those chords and having bebop stuff, modal stuff, all of those things, you don't really need too much of those other things. Or even if you have millions of ideas in that other world, you don't need to use them all the time, because your range is so great from the simple to the complex that you don't have to live in this densely sort of overplaying, complex, just everything altered and blah, 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 blah at every opportunity. There's just no need for it, because you have this beautiful musical range and sort of sonic range with harmony and melody, due to working on this really, really simple stuff. Is something Mike Stern always used to talk about. I used to go to his house in the early days, 20-something years ago, 25 years ago, the early days of me living in New York, and just going to Mike's house almost every day. We really played for some period of time. We played almost every day at his place if he was in town, and we'd just play standards, we'd just play tunes, and he would be like, oh man, I'm doing too much of this, or not enough of that. He's really thinking about his playing and going over it and analyzing it and obviously trying to be better. That's why we were sitting there working on this music and playing together. We were trying to find improvement in so many areas of our playing. Sometimes he would say, man, I'm playing too much blues over these changes. There'd be changes that were going by, and you force the blues over 2 5s and make it sound fantastic. I've loved the sound of that over a 2.5. But he would always be, man, I'm playing too much blues here. And he's like, I'm kind of bullshitting the music a little bit. I should expand and play the changes more. But it was something I grabbed onto because I think up until that point, I'd been playing the changes too much and not playing enough blues. So to be exposed to Mike's thing, coming from like this soulful blues, R&B, Motown, rock, jazz combination that is his sound, to be exposed to that over a tune like All the Things You Are or Autumn Leaves or On Green Dolphin Street or whatever we would be playing together in his apartment, just the two of us, was a great thing. And it's something, when I talk about simplicity like this, when I talk about just using one or two notes over an entire set of changes, is this 2-5-1-6 here, something I think about often. And I'll try and make some examples of that now. Play simple, inject some blues, play simple, then maybe expand to more changes playing, just to give you an idea of the variation. And so, I mean, I do this a lot. I dig it. There's so much mileage you can get out of something as simple as a 2-5-1-6 like that. And hopefully that was, somewhat of an example of each kind of the three categories that I was talking about. The super simple, a little bit of blues, and then expanding out to more of, a little more complex changes playing and using stuff like this, the altered scale, using a bunch of 2-5-1 jazz vocabulary. If you want to take a look at some of this stuff in a little more depth, if that's something you're trying to improve in your playing, I'm doing a new bundle here. It's kind of a 5-to-1. Very sort of jazz 2-5-1 specific. It's these two books. It's Bass Player's Guide to Altered Chords and Scales, and it's Jazz Vocabulary for Electric Bass 2-5-1. I'll link them below and I'll bundle them together so you can get a discount if you want to get both of those. But there's a lot of what I'm talking about in both of those books, especially in 2-5-1, because it starts out with very simple ideas, ways to get through chord changes using very limited amounts of information. And then, of course, in altered chords and scales, it's all about getting that altered sound on the 5 chord. When you get really exposing that. All of that kind of stuff. Super fun as well. Like, it's not like I'm against playing complex or 5 or altered or any of this. I love all of it. I think it's just important for us to make sure we're working on our range. Like, we don't have to play all of that crazy stuff all of the time. It's so easy to get trapped in that. I think we have all seen plenty of videos of dozens, if not hundreds, of bass players, guitar players, piano players who play in that mode, the burnout mode, the altered mode, like all the time. And I don't mean a mode as in scale. I mean a mode as in that's the only gear they're in. That's Instagram musicians for you. There's YouTube musicians. There's people who have taken the few licks and have worked really hard on them and can play them really fast. And then they sort of paint themselves into a corner, I think, where they sort of have to do that all the time because that's maybe what they become known for, or maybe that's all they have. But when you hear a truly great musician, they're in control of all of it. They can play one note on a 2/5 and make you move, make you dance, make you sing, help you leave the show you've been at listening to them with melodies stuck in your head and not sort of fatigued from hearing all of the notes all of the time. So I'm big fan of working on the whole range as often as possible. Now I did say I had two things to talk to you about. That was sort of the general one. I think that's the thing we can all work on. I know I need to work on it more, and I do. I continue to work on it. The other thing is a wish list thing. It's a pedal thing. We're on only one camera today, so I don't have the pedal board highlighted, but you may well know I've been using the UA, Universal Audio Effects Delverb, as my main reverb. Right now it's on a plate. It's a very pleasing plate, actually. It's not that long. I don't have the mix up that much. I'm going to put my other in-ear in so I get the full stereo effect. And maybe I'll give it a little more. I'm actually relearning tunes of mine for the weekend for this show in Austin. So I'm trying to find the right verbs. But it's subtle, right? It's a play. It's not too huge. Anyway, before I get too far into the Delverb, that is just to say that, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, is what I've been using. It's the last thing in the chain before the looper. It's stereo. It's big. It's beautiful. It's lush, especially when I go to the bigger ambient setting. And as lush, and it is beautiful. It's it's incredible how it affects the amount and type of work you do with the fingers to play the same thing with a different reverb, with no reverb. Pretty amazing how it affect that. So that's what I've been using now. I do not know much about this gentleman I'm about to reference. His name is Paul Davids. He's a huge YouTuber. I'm looking at his channel right now. 3.59 million subscribers. Yeah, you got to take your hat off to that and just drop and do 20, right? That's kind of ridiculous. Guitar player. Very nice YouTube radio voice. He is of the deep and BBC style presence radio voice, which is I dig that. But he got together with Cornerstone. Is it Cornerstone Audio? Cornerstone Music? I'm not sure what their full name is, but Cornerstone, and made the Nucleo. Wow. I wish I could just sit here and watch the whole video with you guys and talk about all the things I love about it. But I'm going to skim down the timeline just in case you haven't heard this thing. We are going to borrow from Paul's video here.
In between. And if you want to hit the fourth up or the fourth down, there's little regions in the knob where it's easy to find, so you don't...
Oh yeah, there's some pitch shifting stuff in there. So essentially, I believe the story goes that Paul went to a nuclear power plant. I want to say it was maybe the one they built in Austria and never switched on. I know that's a thing. I knew that a long time ago, and I think that's the one that he went to and played guitar. I took an amp and played guitar. I was like, whoa, man, this thing sounds great. And then built a reverb pedal. Now, I have since seen that this was sort of in the works and publicly known for some time, but I had no idea about it. I think I was even at Guitar Summit in Germany where they had a sort of a demo version last year. I'm kicking myself that I didn't run into him or Cornerstone or wasn't aware of that pedal, because it sounds insane. And this is by no means like a big commercial for the pedal. I just wanted to share with you guys sort of how this happens with me, how I get into a new thing. And it's quite random. Like, I don't really know this guy, Paul Davids. I'm aware that he's a big YouTuber and he's a guitar player. So he's not necessarily in my orbit in terms of what I do. I checked out a couple of his videos. A lot of them are like song tutorials and some gear stuff. So a little bit of a different lane from me, and obviously a guitar player. But this pedal sounds like it could be absolutely ridiculous on bass. And there's some, like I said, we were just getting to the pitch shifting thing there.
Like this: A minor, D minor, E minor.
Not sure how much I would use that one, but there are some.
Into a very modulated room.
Yeah, there's definitely some things I would use in here.
That's very cool.
There's some octave stuff, maybe not so applicable for me within the reverb pedal. In that sort of use
It's
case.
now on normal. As you see, the 3 is illuminated.
But also, this is another thing. I'm obviously watching the video here and looking at this beautiful interface, and I've watched the video many, many times. By the way, the reason I don't have one of these is because they sold out in like 8 seconds or something. I don't think it was 8 seconds, but it was like, I signed up for the mailing list as soon as I saw it. Hey, notify me when these are in stock again. You can't get one for love nor money. So that's the main reason I don't have one. They're also not cheap. Let's not beat around the bush. I think they're about $450. But when you look at the interface, this is something I'm really, really keen on these days, because not only am I working on designing something for myself, a pedal. It's not a reverb pedal, by the way, but I'm looking at design in a big way, and there are so many things I like about this. Luckily, having exposed this to the world, that I love this pedal. I couldn't copy any of this stuff for my own pedal, but just, I think layout wise, there's the right amount of space between features and sort of the alternate functions of buttons and stuff like that. I really dig. So yeah, I highly recommend checking it out if you're into that kind of stuff.
And then with this knob, we can go to vintage and lo-fi. We change the subtle wow and flutter, and has a warmer reverb sound in general.
Like this granular modulation on this one setting. I think that's vintage or lo-fi, I don't know. But it just sounds so warm and so big. I'm just really psyched to try it. Hey, who knows? Might not be the thing for me at the end of the day. You can never really tell 100%. But having spent a long time, obviously years now, playing pedals and listening to pedal demos on YouTube, I'm getting a better feel for what I think might work and what won't. And this seems to really fit the bill. And it's something that, I like I said, I love this sound. Like that tail, that hall. It is really nice, but there's just so little control over it on the pedal itself. And I'm just not into the app diving thing. And even in the app, you've only got presets. You can't actually set up your own reverb. So as much as I love the Delverb, if I can get my hands on a Nucleo, and if it works out and the sound quality and there's no sort of loss of bass, that's always a worry for us bass players when you get a guitar pedal, is that it won't keep the integrity of the sound as much. As long as all of that sounds good, which so far from everything I've heard on the demos, it sounds incredible. As long as that holds true in person and in real life, then I would imagine the Delverb will be going and the Nucleo will be incoming. And if you know someone, or you are someone who got this pedal and for whatever reason did not dig it, or you're trying to sell it, hello, I'm right here. Let's do a deal. Let's not do it on Reverb or something where it will cost us all extra money. Get in touch if you have one of these things. I would love to buy it from you. I haven't been this sort of excited about a piece of gear in a very, very long time. I have a very specific setup that I'm looking for, which may include the Chase Bliss Onward and may or may not include the Microcosm. We'll see. Trying to get a really small board that does massive things in stereo and has 2 stereo DIs on the end of it and a switcher between the 2, so I can actually have 2 completely separate stereo channels coming from one board going to the house or to a recording console. I did that for One Way Out, the album I put out in 2022. That's how we did it. We had 4 channels of bass. Oops. And I don't see it right now. I just recently moved all my pedals around. Hang on. I don't see the pedal, but I have this stereo parallel switching box. So 2 stereo DIs, 1 switching box, hopefully a Nucleo, a Mood Mark II, Onward, HX Stomp, some sort of looper setup. It's going to be a pretty incredible board, and it will fit into a fairly economically proportioned setup. So let's see. I'm back to the smallest platform. I have my Vertex Effects, the smaller one with the small riser on it that goes in the small blue Pelican, the carry on the Pelican 1510. I'm back to that now. I anticipate some flying coming up and maybe some tight connections, so I want to be able to have the pedals as a carry on. And that's where I'm at. Again, I don't know Paul Davids at all. I have no affiliation with the Nucleo pedal. I just want one. So again, if you're out there and you have one and want to sell it for some crazy reason, hit me up in the comments. And just in general, hit me up in the comments and let me know what's up. Let me know what's going on. Let me know if you're coming to the show in Austin on Saturday. I believe there are still tickets available. I haven't been checking in on that side of things, so I hope there are still tickets available. Go check it out. I'll link everything in below. It's on, you find it on my tour page, all the details. And I've got tour dates coming up with Mike Stern, the end of the year. We've got a festival date the end of September with Steve Smith, Vital Information, out in Hampton, Virginia, at the Phoebus Jazz Festival. And what else is going on? Some Bob Reynolds dates at the Baked Potato coming up. We had a fantastic one last week where Near Felder was in town and played with us, so we played quintet. That was really fun. Nice change up. Maybe I'll post a clip of that on the Clips channel. Let's see. But that's it. 251s. Really important that you work on that simplicity. You don't have to get to the complexity of altern and of making all the changes right away. No matter what you're doing, I think it's really about the feel, the phrasing, the time, the sound. Get to the notes later. Get that vocabulary of feel inside you first. And if you want to dig deeper into any of that stuff, like I said, Bass Player's Guide to Alter Chords and Scales and Jazz Vocabulary for Electric Bass, 251. Both of these books bundled. I'll link it below. Appreciate you spending some time with me. See you guys on the next one.